All right, everyone, we start off today talking about the political persecution of Donald Trump. You may have seen the news, of course, Jack Smith amending the election interference indictment against him to try to circumvent the SCOTUS ruling on presidential immunity. What SCOTUS said is that if a president is acting in their official capacity as president when they make a decision, they are generally granted immunity. Now, of course, there are going to be limitations to this. So the president can't simply walk down the street and shoot somebody. That's not an official presidential act. But there's effective immunity for official proceedings. Now, one would think that this would extend, because Trump was the president at the time of the 2020 election, would extend to official decision-making in his role as president. That would include, by the way, making a phone call to the Georgia Attorney General. It would include talking to his vice president and attempting to influence him to not certify electors right away and to look into the election. These would be official proceedings as president. What the new indictment does is says, no. Trump wasn't doing that in his presidential capacity. He was doing that in his presidential candidate capacity. So the incumbency doesn't matter because he's running for office and it pertains to the election, and so immunity cannot be granted. They've simply inserted, the indictment is effectively the same. The only thing is that they've changed the category of President Donald J. Trump to presidential candidate Donald J. Trump. It's almost surreal. It's very audacious, too. I would point out that we've only got a few days left in August. There is no possibility, with all the refiling and appeals and everything else that now has to go on with this dovetailed amended indictment, there's no way that it happens before the election anyway, so it's effectively DOA if Trump wins re-election. He would become effectively immune from the persecution/prosecution that's taking place. The reason that they're doing this is to try to keep it in the headlines, therefore. They don't want the news cycle to be mainly about RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard endorsing Trump, or Kamala Harris's upcoming interview, which she refuses to do alone, by the way. She's dragging Tim Walz on board with her. I think they're going on CBS later. They don't want him talking about that. They don't want him talking about Harris flip-flopping on building the wall, which is utterly hilarious. We'll be talking about that separately, and probably in the live stream later. I'm sure that the Quartering will bring it up as well. That's at 1 p.m., so go and subscribe to him also. Between the two of us, you're getting all the hard-hitting political commentary you need. Also get Razor Fist and Lionel Nation and a few others aboard, and you've pretty much filled up your docket. The injustice system refuses to stop persecuting Donald Trump. But it's not even for the purposes, they're not actually trying to put him in jail. What they're trying to do is drain him of funds, which, good luck because he's still raking in the cash from donations. They're trying to drain him of money, and they're trying to waste his time to keep him off the campaign trail in endless court proceedings, etc., etc. Now, some of the cases are going over more well than others. Now, you've also got the sentencing with Judge Merchan. I believe that's docketed for the middle of September as well. I'm sure that the date overlapping almost perfectly with the presidential debate is also not an attempt to sap the news cycle. Because I have a feeling that, is Kamala Harris going to have like a helper or like a security blanket when she debates Donald Trump? Probably will. So no, we're not going to do a one on the, they'll try to punt. Walz will be here as well, so we'll have a 2-on-2 debate or something like that. It's a really weird election. It's quite clear that they're pulling out all the stops to stop Trump. There's a reason for this, and that's because Trump actually walks the walk. He actually does. Unlike Kamala says, well, border security bill, the bipartisan border deal that makes no sense, costs a lot of money and means nothing, trying to ram that through, that she's still in support of it. But Trump actually did secure the border. Or at the very least, he did the best that he could to secure it as much as he could, given the obstruction of his own party for several years on the subject of funding the wall. Kamala Harris talks a big game about trying to, improve Americans' lives, but Trump already did that. etc., etc., etc. They know that they can't win in a free, fair, and open election. In a proper election, without fortification, ballot printers going burr, legalese bullshit, the uniparty will fail. Donald Trump will prevail. It's not entirely clear that they can prevail anyway, though, because they've got such a weak candidate that they have to front. They don't even have the ability to not front her. They couldn't swap her out for anyone else. They can't kick her aside. She's too DEI. She's a diversity hire. That's not the person that you want to shit can when you're pretending to be the party of progress, which really means discrimination and idpol more than anything else. Link in the description. Archived, of course, you can see a read-up of the amendment of the indictment. When I saw this, it didn't really surprise me, actually, because the Supreme Court decision, they were always going to circumvent it. It was quite clear. They were chomping at the bit to do so. They just needed to take a little bit of a breather and say, okay, how do we circumvent this? You know, do the lawyer speak thing. We're putting on our lawyers' hats. How can we still nail him for attempting to obstruct the election? Well, he was president at the time that happened. So Supreme Court says we can't do anything about that. But he was also a presidential candidate. Well, the thing is that that's still his official role, his official capacity. He was still the incumbent. And the things that they're saying that he did that were potentially illegal or immoral or unethical in some way pertain to his functions as President of the United States. Is he not allowed to bring up certain issues with his Vice President? The concept that the Vice President cannot suspend the electors is a legal gray area. So for Trump to encourage him to attempt to exercise that power, barring an impeachment proceeding or something like that, like literally Congress effectively stepping in, clearly that would be legal, yet still it's part of the indictment filings. They retained that. Calling the Georgia Attorney General, for example. Is the president not allowed to call the Georgia Attorney General and say, look, I have, some issues with this election result in your state, and I'm simply, all he did was say, well, look for some fraudulent votes. Well, telling the Attorney General to go after fraudulent voting would not generally be conceived of as being illegal. Also, there's the issue of Trump supposedly whipping up an insurrection. But that's a legal definition, number one, to which this does not rise. Number two, Donald Trump never said anything that a reasonable person would construe of as attempting to foment insurrection. The only way to interpret it that way is if you have Trump derangement syndrome. I've looked at the entire speech on J6. Trump said, go peacefully march, and then he wandered off. What other people do at that point is their own business. It's their own issue. I would point out again that a lot of the J6 persecuted prisoners are still only charged with fairly minor offenses. Oh my God, you trespassed on public property. Oh my God, minor vandalism. Most people there weren't throwing punches. Let's put it that way. It did descend into a riot, but it was not an insurrection or an attempted one. The amendment of this indictment is itself an indictment of the injustice system more than anything else. They just can't let the issue go. And they're doing it at this point solely for political reasons. They're trying to make Trump a legal pariah and sap him of energy and money and time in order to try to stop him from taking office again. That's the only purpose to these indictments. All of them, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.